In the intricate mosaic of history, few institutions inspire as much dread as the Spanish Inquisition. Born under the reign of Ferdinand and Isabella in 1478, this zealous institution would cast a long and dark shadow over Spain and its territories for over 3 centuries. But what made the Inquisition so formidable, and how did its ruthless methods of punishment and trials shape the psyche of a nation? Picture yourself in the shoes of Tomás de Torquemada, the infamous first Inquisitor General, who under his grim watch saw countless individuals subjected to unimaginable torture and brutal punishment. Imagine the chilling echo of hammers against wood as the auto-da-fe platforms were erected, places of public penance and all too often, execution. As Voltaire, the French Enlightenment thinker, once observed, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. The Spanish Inquisition, with its convoluted accusations of heresy and meticulously cruel methods of interrogation, stands as a haunting testament to these words. Join us as we journey into the heart of darkness that was the Spanish Inquisition, dissecting its chilling methods and the personalities who steered it. Welcome to the Diary of Julius Caesar. The dawning of shadows, the birth of the Spanish Inquisition. In the sunset of the 15th century, a dark shadow emerged over Spain, the genesis of the Spanish Inquisition. This ominous institution was born from an intricate tapestry of power, fear, and zealous religious fervor. Let us journey back to 1478, to the grandeur of the Spanish kingdom under the reign of the Catholic monarchs, Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile. The Spanish Inquisition was a child of its time, an era defined by the quest for unity in a kingdom riddled with diverse faiths. Ferdinand and Isabella, firm believers in religious uniformity as the bedrock of political unity, initiated the Inquisition as an instrument of unification. Their reign, which began when they wed in 1469, was a period of consolidation where the seeds of a unified Spain were sowed. But unity came at a price often paid by those who did not align with the Catholic faith. Now you may wonder, what compelled these monarchs to establish such an institution? The Catholic monarchs were influenced by a potent blend of political ambition and religious devotion. The Spanish kingdom was home to an intricate tapestry of religious beliefs. Jews and Muslims lived side by side with Christians, their faiths coalescing in a vibrant, albeit delicate, harmony. However, this harmony was seen as a potential threat, a fracture line that could shatter the unity of the kingdom. With the fall of Constantinople to the Ottoman Turks in 1453, a sense of foreboding and urgency swept through Europe. The Catholic monarchs too were stirred by the threat of religious encroachment. Spain had only recently been reclaimed from Muslim rule in a lengthy conflict known as the Reconquista, and fears of a resurgence ran high. Thus, the Inquisition became a fortress of faith, a safeguard against potential religious corruption and rebellion. It is important to remember a certain infamous duo who served as the engineers of the Inquisition's machinery, King Ferdinand and Grand Inquisitor Tomás de Torquemada. Torquemada, a Dominican friar and confessor to Queen Isabella, is often depicted as the stern face of the Spanish Inquisition. His firm belief in Catholic purity, coupled with his influence on the Queen, significantly shaped the trajectory of the Inquisition. Now, let's unmask a curiosity of history. It is believed that Queen Isabella, despite her fervor, was initially reluctant to sanction the establishment of the Inquisition. However, a papal bull issued by Pope Sixtus IV in 1478, combined with persuasion from Torquemada and the pressing religious concerns of the era, ultimately led to her acquiescence. Thus, the Spanish Inquisition, an institution synonymous with religious persecution, was born. Its founding was not merely an isolated event, but a reflection of the zeitgeist, an era marked by fear, power, and the unyielding pursuit of religious and political unity. Shadows and Flames, the Inquisitors of Spain. The narrative of the Spanish Inquisition is not complete without a deep dive into the profiles of its most prominent and infamous enforcers, the Inquisitors themselves. The first among these shadowy figures to command our attention is Tomás de Torquemada, a name that has, over centuries, become a synonym for religious intolerance and the embodiment of the Inquisition's stern and unforgiving nature. Torquemada was appointed the first Grand Inquisitor of Spain in 1483, serving under the reign of Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile. A Dominican friar hailing from Valladolid, he was not just an enforcer of orthodoxy, but also a confessor and trusted advisor to Queen Isabella. It was his influence that was instrumental in shaping the path of the Inquisition, turning it into a formidable and feared instrument of religious uniformity. Torquemada's reign as Grand Inquisitor was marked by a zealous commitment to the purity of faith. He was unyielding in his belief that heresy was a contagion that needed to be eradicated. Guided by this belief, he extended the Inquisition's reach beyond converted Jews to include conversos, individuals who had converted from Judaism or Islam to Christianity. These individuals lived under a constant shadow of suspicion, their faith questioned, and their loyalty to the crown tested. But the tale of the Inquisition's notorious figures does not end with Torquemada. His successor, Diego Deza, a man of considerable intellectual prowess, was no less formidable. Appointed in 1499, Deza was a Spanish theologian and archbishop who served as an educator to the young Prince Juan, the son of the Catholic monarchs. Yet, his scholarly demeanor did little to soften his stance as an inquisitor. Another figure who warrants our attention is Juan de Zumarraga, the first Archbishop of Mexico and a prominent inquisitor during the colonization of the Americas. Though a scholar and a protector of indigenous rights, he is also remembered for his role in conducting one of the first auto da fe in the New World, demonstrating the far-reaching influence of the Inquisition. The stark commitment of these inquisitors to their cause leads us to a remarkable anecdote. It is said that when Torquemada was pressured by the monarchs to show leniency towards conversos, he presented them with a crucifix, asking, "Judas Iscariot sold Christ for 30 pieces of silver. Your Highnesses are selling him for 3,000 ducats. Here he is. Take him and sell him." His fervor, captured in this incident, reflects the resolute and unyielding nature of the Spanish Inquisition. These men, with their unwavering commitment to orthodoxy and power, were the embodiment of the Spanish Inquisition. They were the driving force behind an institution that shaped the course of Spanish history, a chapter etched in shadows and flames, a testament to an era when power and faith were the two sides of the same coin, leaving an indelible imprint on the pages of history. Echoes of the unseen, the unforgiving instruments of the Spanish Inquisition. In the darkened chambers of the Spanish Inquisition, the veil of mystery parts to reveal chilling methods of interrogation and punishment, a testament to a time when fear was an instrument wielded with merciless precision. This era, drenched in the dread of unseen judgment, bore witness to the implementation of brutal and relentless methods of extraction and public chastisement. Among the chilling tools employed, the infamous rack holds a place of dread. It was a wooden frame, usually with rollers, where the accused would be fastened, their limbs tied to chains. With each turn of the roller, the chains would tighten, stretching the individual to unbearable lengths, a cruel parody of human limits. Then there was the strappado, a seemingly simple device with horrifying implications. The accused would have their wrists bound behind their backs, after which they would be lifted off the ground by a pulley, their own weight creating a painful strain. Occasionally, an added cruelty was imposed, with weights attached to the victim's feet, amplifying the torment exponentially. Waterboarding, a term more recently associated with modern times, also found a place in the repertoire of the Inquisition's torments. Known then as tortura del agua, this form of torture involved forcing the accused to ingest water poured into a cloth placed over their mouth and nose, creating a sensation of drowning. Yet, the machinery of the Inquisition was not confined to hidden chambers of torment. It extended its harsh grasp to the public sphere in the form of auto da fe ceremonies. These events were grand public displays, a theatrical spectacle of penance, judgment, and often execution. The auto da fe, a term derived from the Portuguese for act of faith, was a grim parade of those found guilty, a powerful symbol of the Inquisition's unyielding authority. One of the most notorious auto da fe ceremonies took place in Madrid in 1680. This event, orchestrated by the Inquisitor Francisco Sotomayor, was attended by the Spanish king Charles II. The magnitude of the event, with its grandeur and chilling outcomes, was vividly captured in a painting by Francisco Rizzi, serving as a haunting reminder of the Inquisition's iron fist. In the historical chronicles of the Inquisition, a chilling story tells of an auto da fe in 1491 in Zaragoza, where 6 individuals were sentenced for allegedly causing the death of a child. This event gave rise to the myth of El Santo Niño de la Guardia, a tale manipulated by the Inquisition to incite fear and animosity against those it sought to control. Words echoed through these ceremonies, a grim mantra that defined the Inquisition's purpose: purge the heresy, cleanse the soul. An institution that wielded its power under the guise of spiritual purification left an indelible scar on the pages of history. Under the unblinking eye, the unyielding course of inquisitional trials. Stepping into the realm of the Spanish Inquisition, we find ourselves enveloped in an intricate labyrinth of accusations and trials. The cogs of this formidable machine began to turn when an accusation of heresy was made, a situation that could be instigated by anyone from a vengeful neighbor to a suspicious clergyman. Even rumors or indirect evidence could suffice to invite the dreaded knock of the Inquisition. Once accused, the individual was seized, often without any warning, whisked away to the shadowy chambers of the Inquisition. Here began the intimidating process of interrogation, a harrowing journey with no guarantee of survival. Accusations, confessions, denunciations, these were the haunting echoes within the tribunal chambers. The idea of limpieza de sangre, or purity of blood, was a key influencer in this process. This concept, rooted in the assumption of hereditary purity, was a litmus test for social acceptance. The belief held that old Christians, whose bloodline was untainted by Jewish or Muslim lineage, were superior, while new Christians, who had converted from Judaism or Islam, were constantly under suspicion. Thus, the purity of blood became both a sword and a shield, casting a long shadow over the trials. One might wonder about the fairness of these trials. A vital point to understand is that the scales of justice were heavily skewed in favor of the Inquisition. The accused were not informed of their accusers, nor were they always aware of the specific charges against them. This obscured vision of justice was no accident. It was a carefully cultivated strategy to maintain the power of the Inquisition and to keep the accused off balance. Remarkably, not all trials concluded with a grim verdict. In fact, a study by historian Henry Kamen suggests that between 1540 and 1700, only about 2% of those who faced the Inquisition tribunals in Valencia and Barcelona were executed. However, this does not diminish the terrifying experience of the trial, or the significant number of individuals subjected to public shaming, confiscation of property, or lengthy imprisonments. The trials of the Inquisition were not just a judicial procedure, they were a carefully orchestrated performance of power. A case that starkly illuminates this is the trial of Ignatius of Loyola in 1526. Ignatius, the future founder of the Jesuit order, was accused of heresy due to his unconventional spiritual practices. The Inquisition saw in him a potential threat to the religious order and put him on trial. Even though Ignatius was acquitted, the message was clear. The eye of the Inquisition was unblinking and omnipresent. Shadows on the crossroads, the diverse victims of the Spanish Inquisition. In the landscape of the Spanish Inquisition, no corner was safe from its ever-watchful gaze. The monolithic institution initially focused its relentless scrutiny on converted Jews, known as conversos, and their clandestine counterparts, the Marranos, who publicly professed Christianity while privately practicing Judaism. This intense scrutiny was rooted in a deep suspicion of insincere conversions and the perceived threat they posed to the Christian social order. In the late 14th and early 15th centuries, the conversos, despite their conversion, found themselves facing social and economic isolation, their newfound faith not enough to shield them from the stain of their Jewish lineage. One prominent figure in this community was Diego Arias Dávila, the royal treasurer to King Henry II of Castile. Despite his high status, Dávila and his family were targeted for their Jewish origins, a stark reminder that no elevation in rank could guarantee safety from the Inquisition's reach. As the 16th century dawned, the Inquisition's focus expanded, casting a wider net that ensnared another minority group, the Moriscos, or Muslims, who had converted to Christianity. In a tragic irony, these converts, who had adopted the Christian faith seeking societal acceptance, instead found themselves under the intense scrutiny of the Inquisition, their sincerity once again under question. A dramatic episode from this era involves the infamous Morisco Revolt in Granada between 1568 and 1571. The Moriscos, pushed to the brink by the harsh policies of the monarchy and the church, staged a rebellion, the crushing of which only further fueled the Inquisition's mistrust and rigorous policing of this group. Yet, the web of the Inquisition continued to spread even further. As the Reformation took root in the 16th century, sparking religious turmoil across Europe, Protestants found themselves on the Spanish Inquisition's radar. The infamous case of Carlos de Seso, a Spanish nobleman who had embraced Protestantism, stands out. Seso, despite his noble status, was arrested in 1558, a haunting testament to the Inquisition's indifference to social standing when hunting heresy. Lastly, the pages of history are stained with the Inquisition's hunt for witchcraft. Accusations of such dark practices could lead to dire consequences. Take the case of the infamous Basque witch trials in the early 17th century, where mass hysteria and manipulation led to one of the largest witch trials in history. The Inquisition's intervention resulted in the auto da fe of Logrono in 1610, where several people were executed, their fates sealed by the spectre of witchcraft. Woven in shadows, the Inquisition's tapestry on Spanish society and culture. The spectre of the Spanish Inquisition was far more than just a religious institution. Its influence pervaded every facet of society, leaving a lasting imprint on the cultural, societal, and political tapestry of Spain. Starting from 1478, the Inquisition's iron hand gripped the societal fabric. It cultivated a climate of fear and suspicion, pushing Spain into an age where neighbor watched neighbor, the shadow of heresy ever present. Indeed, Francisco de Quevedo, one of Spain's most prominent Golden Age writers, captured this era's anxiety in his works, his narratives often hinting at the pervasive watchfulness and paranoia. Furthermore, the Inquisition's tentacles reached the realm of politics, its influence morphing Spain's political landscape. It was a tool wielded effectively by the monarchy, who used it to consolidate power and ensure religious uniformity. It served as an instrument of control, allowing the monarchy to keep a firm grip on their subjects and suppress dissent. The case of Antonio Perez, secretary to King Philip II, illustrates this. When Perez fell out of royal favor, accusations of heresy were a convenient pretext to imprison him in 1573. Yet, the Inquisition's influence extended beyond inciting fear and political manipulation. It also weaved its way into Spain's rich cultural tapestry. In the realm of art, Francisco Goya's works bear testament to this. His painting, The Inquisition Tribunal, finished around 1812, is a somber depiction of the Inquisition's tribunal, a stark visual embodiment of the institution's dread. Similarly, literature of the time mirrored the Inquisition's shadow. One of the most compelling examples is Miguel de Cervantes's masterpiece, Don Quixote. This iconic work subtly addresses the climate of censorship, and the character of Ricote, a Morisco in hiding, reflects the fear faced by those persecuted. Cervantes himself was no stranger to the Inquisition's dread, having been summoned by the Holy Office at least twice. Music, too, reflected the societal change. Songs, once filled with the vibrant influences of Jewish, Muslim, and Christian cultures, turned more homogeneous as the Inquisition sought to suppress non-Christian elements. Yet amidst the repression and fear, the Inquisition ironically fueled a certain resilience in the cultural landscape. A sense of subversion crept into the arts, seen in the proliferation of crypto-Judaic songs, covert expressions of Jewish faith concealed within seemingly Christian tunes, a silent rebellion against forced religious uniformity, feminine fate in the flames of faith. As we delve into the history of the Spanish Inquisition, we uncover the poignant narrative of women, whose fate was often bound by the whims and biases of an epoch rife with gendered perceptions. Charged with witchcraft and sorcery, women navigated an uneven terrain of suspicion and danger, their stories shedding light on the Inquisition's gender politics. The spotlight first falls on Logroño, Spain, in the year 1610, where 6 women, the so-called Witches of Zugarramurdi, were accused of participating in an enormous witches' sabbath. Ensnared by public hysteria and fear of the supernatural, these women suffered a chilling fate, stoking the flames of the Basque witch trials that claimed numerous lives. Among the condemned was Maria de Simildegui, a woman whose name has since been etched into the chronicles of the Basque trials. Accused of teaching other women and girls the craft of witchcraft, Maria's story echoes the fraught position of women during this time, often accused based on hearsay and suspicion. A pivotal figure who dared to challenge the authority of the Inquisition was Queen Isabella of Castile. In a 1480 letter to the Inquisitors, she insisted on careful investigation before accusations of witchcraft. While her efforts did not quell the tide, they did underscore the struggles of women, even those in positions of power, to combat the prevailing prejudices. Often the fear of the feminine was manifest in the figure of the witch. The stereotypical witch was frequently portrayed as an older woman, living on the fringes of society, perhaps skilled in healing or midwifery. Accusations of witchcraft often served as an outlet for social, economic, or personal anxieties and resentments, particularly in times of hardship. The Malleus Maleficarum, an infamous text published in 1486 by Heinrich Kramer, provided a pseudo-theoretical justification for the persecution of women. The title, often translated as The Hammer of Witches, resonated with the fears of an age and echoed in the chambers of the Inquisition courts. Even though the Spanish Inquisition did not use the manual as much as other inquisitions, it helped reinforce the existing societal biases against women. Tucked away in the narrative of the Inquisition is a curiosity about the feminine power that refused to be quelled: the crypto-Judaic women. Often referred to as the guardians of the faith, these women, such as Beatriz Núñez and Isabel Rodriguez, secretly preserved and passed on Jewish traditions, defying the fierce scrutiny of the Inquisition. Stirring tales of resistance and resilience are found in the writings of Saint Teresa of Avila, a mystic and writer who expertly navigated the tightrope of religious fervor and suspicion. Her prose and poetry, such as Let Nothing Disturb You, provided spiritual solace and have echoed through the centuries, shaping the course of Spanish literature and mystical thought. Shadows and Mirrors, the Spanish Inquisition Unveiled. The Spanish Inquisition, a chapter deeply embedded in the historical records of Spain's history, is often seen through a lens distorted by myth and misconception. The narrative is cloaked in tales of sweeping, relentless brutality and countless executions. Yet, in the cold light of historical truth, these stories often flicker out, their inaccuracies revealed. This is not to downplay the Inquisition's severity, but to bring into sharper focus the true form it took. Consider the myth of the Inquisition's deadly magnitude. Popular culture echoes with tales of millions succumbing to the Inquisition's iron hand. Yet, according to historian Henry Kamen, the reality is starkly different. The estimated number of executions between 1540 and 1700, arguably the Inquisition's most active period, falls around 2,000, a somber figure, yes, but far from the millions often cited. Another myth centers around the pervasive reach of the Inquisition, a web spun across all of Spain. The reality, however, points to a more fragmented picture. The Spanish Inquisition was not one overarching entity, but rather a series of regional tribunals, each with their own quirks and degrees of severity. As Rodrigo de Vivar, an administrative clerk in the Valencia tribunal, noted in 1553, the procedures and sentences varied remarkably from one tribunal to another. Equally persistent, is the myth surrounding the infamous torture devices associated with the Inquisition, like the Iron Maiden. Painted in terrifying detail in popular imagination, these devices are often believed to have been staples of the Inquisition. However, these tales crumble under scrutiny. There's no historical evidence to suggest such devices were used by the Spanish Inquisition. As reported by historian Gustav Henningsen, torture was used sparingly, and when employed, it was often more psychological than physical, aiming to elicit confessions rather than inflict irreparable harm. The origin of these misconceptions is intriguing in itself. Many of these myths were born from the Black Legend, a body of literature that painted Spain and the Inquisition in the darkest tones, a part of a broader political game, particularly from Protestant countries during the Reformation. English playwright William Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, for instance, features the character of Shylock, a Jewish man mistreated by a Christian society, subtly echoing the Inquisition's narrative. This reinforced the stereotype of the Inquisition as a monstrous entity. These myths, however, do more than just exaggerate. They often overshadow the more nuanced reality of the Spanish Inquisition. The true narrative is less about indiscriminate brutality and more about a complex, multifaceted institution. Its role ranged from enforcing religious uniformity to solidifying the monarchy's power. Its influence was felt from the smallest villages to the grandest courts, weaving a complex tapestry of faith, fear, and power. When shadows meet light, the Spanish Inquisition's collision with the Enlightenment. In the grand tapestry of human history, the Spanish Inquisition and the Enlightenment might seem worlds apart, one representing unyielding authority and zealous intolerance, the other symbolizing a luminous period of reason, questioning, and the pursuit of individual freedoms. However, their threads intertwine in an intricate dance that paints a vivid tableau of the societal shift from unyielding dogma to the dawn of progressive thinking. As the Spanish Inquisition wielded its power with an iron fist in the 15th century, a seed of rebellion had already been planted. This seed, nourished by the intellectual winds of the Renaissance, would grow into the robust tree of the Enlightenment in the 17th and 18th centuries. From the pen of Voltaire to the daring theories of Galileo, this period represented a radical shift in thinking, challenging the status quo and advocating for religious tolerance and freedom of thought. Spain, with the Inquisition still casting a long shadow over its society, found itself at a crossroads. The Enlightenment ideals seeped into the nation through literature, intellectual discourse, and the grand halls of academia. Yet, these new concepts were not welcomed by all. Indeed, they were seen by some as dangerous substances that threatened the order of things. The Inquisition viewed the influx of Enlightenment ideas as a direct challenge. As the philosopher Spinoza boldly declared that God and nature were one, a statement that blurred the established lines of religious dogma, the alarm bells began to ring within the Spanish Inquisition. Spinoza's works were not the only Enlightenment writings that drew the Inquisition's ire. The Encyclopédie, a massive work edited by Denis Diderot and Jean-Laurent d'Alembert that espoused Enlightenment ideas, found itself on the index of forbidden books. Yet, despite these efforts to stem the tide, the Enlightenment ideals continued to trickle into Spain through clandestine reading circles and secret societies, like the Freemasons. In 1767, Carlos III, who had been influenced by Enlightenment ideas during his time in Naples, took the remarkable step of expelling the Jesuits, who had been strong enforcers of the Inquisition. This act symbolized a significant shift in the power balance. The king's advisor, the Count of Aranda, epitomized this transition when he said, "The nation is grown up, it is of age. It thinks and wishes to think." Yet even as the grip of the Inquisition loosened, the tension between the old and the new remained palpable. The trial of Pablo de Olavide, a reform-minded government official accused of being a Freemason and a follower of the banned French Enlightenment, illustrated the enduring clout of the Inquisition. The setting sun, the final days of the Spanish Inquisition. Picture a stage set for a centuries-long drama, and now the curtains are preparing to draw to a close. The Spanish Inquisition, once a symbol of fear and control, found its foundation shaking in the dawn of the 19th century. This time was not marked by dramatic conflicts, but by an inevitable societal shift that finally led to the Inquisition's disintegration. The Enlightenment, which had subtly permeated Spanish society through the late 18th century, had begun to exert a palpable influence on the country's political landscape. Despite attempts to suppress these progressive ideas, the seeds of reform had been sown. In 1808, the Spanish people faced a national crisis when Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Spain and installed his brother, Joseph Bonaparte, on the throne. Though Joseph's reign was brief and contentious, it bore a significant impact on the Inquisition. Joseph, adopting the ideals of the French Revolution, sought to modernize Spain. He recognized the Inquisition as an institution that belonged to an earlier epoch, incompatible with the winds of change sweeping through Europe. On July 4, 1808, he issued a decree abolishing the Spanish Inquisition. Although his decree would be reversed after his expulsion and the restoration of the Spanish monarchy, the brief taste of the Inquisition's end had a profound impact on the Spanish psyche. The changing tides could not be ignored by Ferdinand VII, who ascended to the throne in 1813. Feeling the pressure, he allowed for a more limited version of the Inquisition to return, a shadow of its former self. Nonetheless, the seeds of doubt had been sown, and the public sentiment towards the Inquisition had significantly shifted. Its demise was not a question of if, but when. The answer came with the Trienio Liberal, a 3-year period from 1820 to 1823 of liberal rule in Spain. As part of a wave of reforms, the Cortes voted to abolish the Inquisition once again in 1820. Yet, the pendulum swung back with the return of absolute monarchy in 1823, and the Inquisition was reinstated. These fluctuations revealed a truth that could not be ignored. The Inquisition was no longer an unshakable part of Spanish society, but rather a political tool that was growing obsolete. The final blow came with a more enduring shift in power. The death of Ferdinand VII in 1833 sparked a civil war, known as the First Carlist War, between supporters of his infant daughter Isabella and those of his brother Carlos. Isabella's supporters, who ultimately won the war, were advocates of a more liberal Spain. The regent, Maria Cristina, initiated a series of reforms to stabilize the monarchy, and in this political shake-up, the Spanish Inquisition found itself on the chopping block. On July 15, 1834, a royal decree was issued, declaring the final abolition of the Inquisition. The institution that had cast a long shadow over Spain for centuries was no more. Echoes through the ages, comparing inquisitional practices across borders. As we wade through the labyrinth of history, we encounter not one but several instances of religious inquisitions. Though similar in name, the Spanish, Roman, and Portuguese inquisitions bore distinct characteristics, etching their unique footprints in their respective regions and eras. Envision the scenario of Spain in the late 15th century. The Spanish Inquisition, established in 1478 under the reign of Ferdinand and Isabella, was distinctly nationalistic. It sought primarily to strengthen Catholicism, unifying Spain under one faith while expelling those who did not conform. Uniquely, it operated under the auspices of the monarchy, a stark contrast to other inquisitions managed by the Church. In contrast, the Roman Inquisition, founded in 1542, came to existence several decades later. Known for its less brutal approach, it was centered in Italy and controlled by the papacy, unlike its Spanish counterpart. Its primary goal was not ethnic or religious cleansing, but the curbing of heresy, particularly following the Protestant Reformation. It aimed to safeguard the integrity of Catholic doctrine, taking keen interest in intellectual and theological deviations. Famous for its trial of Galileo Galilei, the Roman Inquisition's brush with science is well documented. Journeying to Portugal, the Portuguese Inquisition, established in 1536, was strongly influenced by its Spanish counterpart, yet held its unique features. It focused more on converted Jews, or New Christians, and later on the converted Muslims. There was a distinct racial undertone to the Portuguese Inquisition, owing to the concept of limpieza de sangre, or purity of blood, an element less pronounced in the Roman Inquisition. To illustrate this point, consider the case of Garcia de Horta. An illustrious Portuguese physician of the 16th century, de Horta was a new Christian. He enjoyed a successful career in Goa, India, free from inquisitional scrutiny, until his death in 1568. However, the long arm of the Portuguese Inquisition reached beyond his grave, posthumously sentencing him in 1580 for alleged Judaizing practices. This grim episode underscores the Inquisition's fixation on blood purity, tracking down converted Jews even in distant colonies. From the shadowy dungeons of Spain to the cobblestoned lanes of Rome and the sun-dappled squares of Portugal, the Inquisitions left indelible marks on human history. They bear witness to the tensions between faith and power, fear and control, reminding us of a past when fear was the sovereign and suspicion the daily bread. Echoes of the past, the Inquisition's enduring shadows in modern times. As the echoes of the Spanish Inquisition reverberate through time, its legacy weaves an intricate tapestry of controversy, fascination, and reflection in contemporary society. The Spanish Inquisition, remembered as an institution of profound intolerance and brutal suppression, is a spectre that continues to haunt Spain and global consciousness. Within Spain, the narrative of the Inquisition has become intertwined with the nation's identity and its struggle to reconcile with a tumultuous past. The Inquisition's role in the forced conversion and expulsion of Jews and Muslims remains a somber reminder of religious intolerance and its dire consequences. The 1992 quincentennial of the expulsion of Jews from Spain, marked by solemn commemorations and official apologies, testified to the enduring impact of this historical wound. Yet it isn't just the spectre of religious intolerance that lingers. The Inquisition's legacy is also mirrored in Spain's modern struggle with issues of censorship and political repression, notably during Francisco Franco's dictatorial rule in the 20th century. Franco's regime, in a chilling echo of the Inquisition, utilized similar tactics of fear and repression to quell dissent and maintain control, a stark reminder of the Inquisition's lasting impact on the Spanish psyche. Internationally, the Spanish Inquisition has become a symbol of extreme religious zeal and inquisitorial persecution. It permeates popular culture, its infamous reputation providing fertile ground for a range of cultural expressions, from novels and films to music and theatre. In Victor Hugo's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, the tormented character of Claude Frollo is a chilling embodiment of inquisitorial fanaticism. In cinema, films such as Goya's Ghosts and The Pit and the Pendulum offer cinematic explorations of the Inquisition's terror. The immortal words of British comedy troupe Monty Python, "Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition," have resonated far beyond their comedic origins, encapsulating the surprise and fear that the institution inspired. Meanwhile, the board game Tortuga 1667 Inches and the video game Assassin's Creed II Discovery provide interactive experiences that pull the Inquisition from the pages of history into the hands of consumers, further amplifying its cultural resonance. Though often sensationalized, these portrayals hint at a deeper societal fascination with understanding the mechanisms of power, fear, and intolerance that drove the Inquisition. It is as though by examining this shadowy chapter of history, society grapples with its own capacity for intolerance and oppression, seeking lessons to illuminate the present and guide the future. The echoes of the Inquisition resonate in the halls of academia too. Scholars continue to dissect and debate its nature, motivations, and impacts, attempting to extricate fact from centuries of accumulated myth and hyperbole. The controversial work of historian Henry Kamen, for instance, has sought to challenge entrenched narratives and cast the Inquisition in a somewhat less sinister light. The 15th century poet Antonio de Nebrija once said, "The Spanish language is the perfect instrument of empire." As we recollect the Inquisition's legacy, we can ponder the irony in Nebrija's words. For indeed, Language became not only an instrument of empire, but also a tool of repression during the Inquisition's reign. We now step out of the imposing shadow of the Spanish Inquisition, carrying with us the memory of its impact, the lessons learned, and the questions it continues to provoke. These stories, as stark as they are illuminating, offer a unique compass, guiding us as we navigate the complexities of our world. They serve as a potent reminder that understanding our past remains key to shaping our future. Thank you for embarking on this journey into the heart of a pivotal period in history. Remember, history's echoes are our guide, and its whispers are the wind beneath the wings of progress.